This week, General Petraeus returns.
What kind of reception will he get from Democrats?
How will he say it's going and what's it like on the ground?
Can he convince Congress the surge is working? How much longer must we stay?
As we all know, when he did it last September, it was a very big deal. Now he's expected to report some progress, call for a pause in July after the troop surge drawdown. Bill, why is it so less of a pressing story, so less of a headline news this week than it was in September?
Well, but it's more evident that the surge has worked and we're on course to a satisfactory outcome of the war.
The progress is measured the way I measure it by the electricity production, by the oil production, by the unemployment, by the incidents.
What about political reconciliation?
It's not going anywhere. They talk about it, but it's not going anywhere.
Are you pleased that the Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has ordered his forces to crack down on Shiite militias?
Well, I hope that works. You know, they have to do it themselves. Anything they do themselves, I'm satisfied with. Anything, Iraq has to take responsibility themselves. We can't do this for them. Every time they don't do it, we have to step in.
In the end, the Iraqi government failed to oust those Shiite militias. Doesn't that raise serious questions about the continued weakness of the central government in Baghdad?
It's interesting. We have asked the government time after time to act effectively, that we want this government to act. They acted. Now, obviously, the results were mixed. Obviously, there were problems.
Obviously, what we saw was an operation that was ill-conceived, ill-planned, and wound up really provoking a much harsher response from Muqtada al-Sadr's militia than I think had been envisaged.
It appears that what the U.S. didn't want was what happened.
Look, I didn't particularly like the outcome of this thing, but I am convinced that we now have a government that is governing with some effect.
I'll play a little clip for you.
The Maliki government, in a general sense, is completely dysfunctional.
And a military that is functioning very effectively.
Whatever else you can say about it, the Iraqis are not ready to take over the security of their own country.
That's right. They clearly were better than they were 6 months ago, but had big problems. They defected in some cases and couldn't really stand up to the militias in a sustainable way.
Overall, the Iraqi military performed pretty well. 6 months ago, it would have, or 8 or 9 months ago, it would have been unthinkable for Maliki
this week that 1,000 soldiers refused to fight or deserted.
And there were many, many thousands who were fighting there.
Very encouraged by the progress on the military front. The Iraqis are stepping up, taking more responsibility.
It's important that we bring a successful conclusion, that when we leave Iraq, and we will be drawing down this summer.
The drawdowns are going to begin, but pause this summer.
That we leave behind a country not like Afghanistan after the Soviets left, the Taliban filled the vacuum and the rest is history.
I would hope that we would none of us would do anything which would risk another failed state like we saw in Afghanistan, which gave the rise to the Taliban and al-Qaeda, and of course with the terrible consequences of September the 11th.
The biggest news of all is that al-Qaeda has taken a real beating here from Muslims in Iraq who had a taste of their agenda and said no.
When we talk about the reduction of al-Qaeda activity in Iraq, a big reason for that is these are mobile. International terrorist entities are mobile entities. They're not bound by one country or another. They have recentered a great deal of their efforts in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, which is the very nature of terrorism, while our troops are tied down on the streets of Iraq, burning themselves out.
I've always said, Chris, this is long and hard and tough.
Take a look at the New York Times this morning. There was a study that was done on Army troops who have been in more than 3 rotations. 27% of the NCOs, this is the career people, have exhibited symptoms of post-traumatic stress, etc.
We're paying a huge penalty for 4 years of a failed strategy that I fought hard against, and I believe this strategy has succeeded and will succeed and can succeed.
A lot of talk about the surge and how that's helped damp down the violence. Some people would say because there was a spike of violence during this Basra battle, maybe al-Sadr's decision to hold the ceasefire is as responsible as the surge is. And if he changes his mind, we're back in the frying pan.
Well, in respect, I don't think Sadr would have declared the ceasefire if he thought he was winning.
The reason the surge has been successful is partly because of the increase of our troops who are superb, but also because Muqtada al-Sadr declared a truce, and because, as you said yourself to John McCain, the Sunnis decided they were better off working with the Americans. That is not an equation for long-term success in Iraq.
This is not politics. This is just taking a very tough situation when they went over there over a year and a half ago and really turning it around. It's really reassuring that we can execute here, conceive and execute a sound plan.
All that was missing from Bill's recitation there were the pom-poms, like the Final Four. He's cheering for the administration, cheering for the surge, cheering for the war. And in terms of Petraeus, the reason it's not exciting coming back this time is people see that the Bush administration is coming to an end, and Petraeus is viewed as a mouthpiece now for the administration more and more and more.
There's a tremendous amount of reconciliation politically and militarily that's been achieved since the surge.
Political reconciliation, which is a key benchmark that we in the United States are looking for in Iraq, simply isn't happening. Efforts at reconciliation are not going as well as the Bush administration would like us to believe.
We want a winning outcome in Iraq, so when we do leave, we're going to leave behind a country that's part of the solution, not the problem. Part of the solution, not the problem, and that is possible if we'll support General Petraeus.
It doesn't sound like things are getting a whole lot better.
That said, the security challenges of the past few weeks may help to bolster General Petraeus' argument on Capitol Hill that we need to pause the drawdown of troops. This is a way to argue, hey, look, we've got these problems in places like Basra in the south. We can't go lower.
Well, I'm very concerned, and that's why I think we need to continue to make sure that we leave Iraq in a condition that it can govern and defend itself.
It seems to me that this is going beyond the reasons that America went to Iraq, and that was to provide, establish some sort of a stable democracy in this part of the world, to help the Iraqis put down these terrorists who were a threat to the United States. Now we have this militia fighting. It's all about the neighborhood. It seems to be now, much more so than it is about Iraq.
Imagine General Petraeus is coming to Washington this week to observe the first anniversary of a temporary surge with no end in sight. That tells the whole story.